Thanks ever so much for that introduction. And I've not got much time, so I'll get straight into it. So, NetScout Threat Intelligence Report, powered by Atlas. I'll mention what that means in a moment. Findings from the first half of 2018. So this is a threat intelligence report and our first threat intelligence report that we've written for people like yourselves, business leaders, okay? So it's a report that gives you the information you need to make decisions in your organization, where we're able to give you the trends, the tools, the tactics, the procedures that the threat actors out there are using against your organizations, very probably right now. And with this information, we hope, and it's our gift to you, we hope that you benefit and can balance the very complicated decisions of budget, resources, etc., that you have to make every day, so you can balance those with this information, balance the risks in your organization. It's first half of 2018. The cadence of the report will be every 6 months. So the next one will be in January, covering all of 2018, and then middle of 2019, covering the first half. So that's the cadence of this report. So it turns out that NetScout, via the acquisition of a company called Arbor Networks, which is where I came from, have had a threat intelligence team for nearly 10 years now. The team has obviously grown, changed in shape and size, and in fact, under the management of NetScout, it's got a lot bigger. Now, this team has been able to get itself quite a global reputation for the excellent work it does in security intelligence, and we have shared many technical details via the normal channels, blog posts, Twitter, etc. So if you want to see whatever the latest malware reversal, C2 encryption, all of the technical details have been out there for a long time. But this is the first time we've done a business level report. And the reason is it's a lot of work to put this together, to be honest. And it wasn't until NetScout were able to sponsor a much larger organization to give us the capability of producing this. And we're very grateful that we can finally share this with you, because every threat intelligence team, and there's lots of them out there, we all have different strengths and weaknesses. Okay, so it turns out that for this team, any malware that is able to generate DDoS attack traffic is one of our specializations. Anything that attacks the finance vertical and point of sale tends to be things that we have been very successful in tracking and reporting on. And more recently, via another acquisition, we now have a team that are focused entirely on nation state, which is a really big part of the problem today. So every team, as I say, have these strengths and weaknesses, but together we are stronger. And this is our contribution to the community, so that together we are stronger. So my presentation is actually very simple. Okay, it does turn up there. All I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 4 highlights from the report. Okay, the idea is I just want to sort of whet your appetite. Not sure if that translates. Encourage you to pick up this report, download this report, read it and understand it. Ask questions. We're here if you've any questions. That's all I'm looking to achieve, so that you can then use this as one of the sources of information that you need to manage risk in your business. So the first finding is that there is a big jump in the frequency of large attacks and the size of the attacks. Now, the cynical amongst you might say, of course, the vendor that provides the world-leading vendor of DDoS mitigation solutions, is, of course, going to say that. Now, it turns out that it's true, and it's a surprise. It's actually a surprise to us as well. We have one other report that Arbor Networks, the Arbor division of NetScout, have produced. It's in its 13th edition now. It's called the Worldwide Infrastructure Security Report, and it reports on lots of security operations things, including the size of attacks. And in that 13 years, there's been several occasions where the DDoS attack sizes have actually been smaller than the year before. And the reason this happens is that when an attacker uses their weapons, because at the end of the day, that's what they are, they're weapons they're using against your organization. When they use their weapon, they are also exposing their weapons to law enforcement, to security researchers, and running the risk of them being taken down, of them being found out, of being blacklisted, etc. So they have, over the years, and the many years that they've been doing this, they've learnt to use that toolkit in a way that they achieve the goal that they want to achieve. They generate an attack that is big enough to deliver the blow that they want to achieve, but no bigger. So that's their goal, and they've actually got quite good at it. So when we saw an attack last year, 800 gigabits per second, I mean, this is enormous. That's an enormous attack. So no one would want to create an attack bigger than that. So it was a surprise. I mean, the way these really big attacks occur, and it's been like this for a very long time, is they use a technique called amplification. Okay. The one that is most popular and that is used today still is DNS amplification. That amplification capability of a DNS server is somewhere between 28 and 54. Okay? Now, we saw that many years ago, let's say 5, 6 years ago, with the first amplification attacks. And it was easy then to predict what was going to happen next. And what was going to happen next was they're going to use other network protocols to create DDoS attacks in the same way. And we predicted that they would use NTP. NTP has an amplification factor of 558, much more than DNS. But it's actually quite an easy one to block. So when it did happen, the attack, I think it was the beginning of 2016 actually, we saw nearly an entire replacement of DNS amplification attacks with NTP amplification attacks. Those that weren't prepared were taken out. Those that were prepared actually found it not too difficult to stop. So after about 6 months, they died away. And we predicted other ones, SSDP, ChargeN, etc. But if you're prepared, you were able to cope with them. So what happened in the first half of 2018 was quite a surprise. There was a new one called Memcache D. So it turns out that the attackers found a new thing that no one had heard of. It was a piece of middleware for web servers, okay? And I sort of imagined in my head, the attackers found this Memcache D, and they were like, oh, this is pretty good. This has got a high amplification factor, and no one seems to be using it yet. So they're, tapping away, building their gun. As I said earlier, it's a weapon, isn't it, that they're using. So they built this gun, and I said, right, where are we going to, let's try, it was GitHub was one of the big ones that we saw. They took their gun, right, ready, bang! It was an enormous 1.3 terabit attack, 28th of March, 1.3 terabits. The news went mad. Everyone was reporting it's the era of the terabit attack. And they're right, you should be concerned. Terabit attacks are terabit attacks. They're big, So widely reported, everyone was afraid of the terabit attack. But it turns out that it was actually quite easy to mitigate. It sits on port 11211, UDP port, few infrastructure ACLs, and you'd be sorted. And of course, companies like STC were well prepared for this kind of attack. I remember my team that cover Europe, Middle East, and Africa. It started actually the Saturday before, a little chat on my Slack channel. Oh, I'm helping a customer do this, protect against this attack. And by the Friday, I think every single person in my team had helped with a customer protect against a Memcache D attack. So it came really, really quickly. So to give you some numbers, so if there's an attack every 1.9 seconds, okay? But if I try and take out the noise and say 300 gig, anything above 300 gig, I mean, that's a big attack, yeah? So to make a comparison, in the first half of 2017, there were 7 attacks globally that were over 300 gig. And in the first half of 2018, there were 47, right? So a massive increase in the frequency. Because they knew that this wasn't going to last very long. It was only going to catch the unprepared, okay? So it was actually on the 5th of March, there was a 1.7 terabit attack, which is now the latest, the biggest that has ever been seen and measured, and that will stay in the record books, I think, for quite some time. The amplification factor of a Memcache D, 10,000 to 54,000, somewhere in that range. Enormous amplification factor. So the lesson to learn from this is we don't seem to be able to predict these very well. Yeah, what's going to come next? Yeah, who knows? I tell you, the people that are prepared are okay. That 1.7 terabit attack actually only took them out for a few minutes while they got their infrastructure ACLs, aligned their mitigation, they were fine. Okay, preparation. So next, going to look at the enterprise. Still talking about DDoS though, okay? So in the enterprise, we have started to see the ability for DDoS tactics to be used internally. Now, the DDoS tactic that we are talking about is WRAY. So there's a page about WRAY in here. WRAY source code was released in 2016 in a very poor attempt to try and cover the tracks of the guy that wrote it. He was in the news actually last week. He's got an $8.6 million fine. Don't know how he's going to pay that. And 2,500 hours of community service, which he will be serving with the FBI. But he delivered that source code, to the free, and everyone's just using it. They're just plugging it in as a module, into their, because someone's already written it for them. Easy. And the module that we found, is in a Windows dropper. Okay, so there's now malware that can generate DDoS attacks using IoT devices on the inside of an enterprise network. I tell you, when I heard this, I thought, I don't know if it worked, a light bulb turned on above my head, because I thought, well, how many devices, IoT devices, are there out there that are on public IP addresses? Well, there's loads of them, because we've seen really big attacks. But how many IoT devices are sitting behind a firewall on a private IP address? 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times more than there are on public IP addresses. So what an obvious thing to do. Yeah, someone's already written the code for you. Why not just use it? So that is going to start happening to you. There's loads of variants that we list here for public IP address attacks, except one of them, OMG here, they've actually put a proxy into their code where they actually do the WRAY attack inside an enterprise via a proxy, so they're not having to change the binary or download any new modules. So I don't know of any enterprises who are prepared for DDoS attacks inside their network. Pretty scary. Let's talk about nation state now on the left there. Now, I mentioned earlier, we have a dedicated team on nation state threats. Okay, this team have put a lot of the research here. So I do like the graphics that we've got in this report. So oil rig, fancy bear, hidden cobra. So we've known for quite some time that there are nation states out there that have defensive capabilities in cyber. In fact, most countries have some kind of defensive capability. We are also aware that quite a number have an offensive capability. The US, the UK, Iran, China, Russia, we're so aware of them, we've even given them names and numbers. You know, like, Russia is Fancy Bear, APT-28. China is APT-1, yeah, the MSS team there. Yeah. So they've all even got names out there. Well, what we are highlighting in this report is that there has been a great expansion in the number of countries that have added offensive capabilities to their nation-state craft. And an offensive nation-state has a very different set of goals than criminals. And it makes your lives much harder because you've got to consider, are you a target of who? What are their tools, tactics, and procedures? The way to find that is to read the report. So if I look at Hidden Cobra, North Korea, okay? So it says here, primary targets are the financial institutions in South Korea and the US. No surprise there. Their known techniques are DDoS botnet, disabling security products, SMTP for data exfiltration. So they use SMTP to steal the data out of your network. They do keyloggers, they've got custom C2. It's all in here, what you need to know in a high-level trends, tools, tactics, and procedures type format for you. I was speaking to the lady who runs this team, actually, and she was telling me that she's now tracking actively 25 nation-states that have offensive cyber capabilities. So a massive increase to what we've been used to. Crimeware, don't want to leave crimeware out. So crimeware, it turns out that this is still really very active, okay? So it's a very active part. In fact, crimeware drives most of the malware campaigns into enterprise organizations. The leading malware is actually Emotet and TrickBot, okay? So this report actually matches up with a company called Symantec. Hopefully you all know Symantec. They do a really good report that is an annual report, so their current annual report is for 2017. They started seeing the crimeware Emotet and TrickBot towards the end of 2017 growing a lot. We can confirm that in the first half of 2018, so we're dovetailing with their report, that they were right. It's absolutely taken over. So Emotet and TrickBot are what's most out there. And they use phishing. I think Symantec said 71% of all malware infections come via phishing and spear phishing campaigns. So that's how they're getting into your organization. So something big has changed, though. They have changed their tactics. If you ask me in 2017, what was the biggest way they're going to get money out of your organizations, ransomware was the way they got money. In 2018, that's changing. Symantec saw this trend towards the end of 2017. So what we are seeing is that ransomware has been so used out there and was so widely publicized via the Petya, non-Petya, WRAY attacks, that the amount of money you can get from ransomware has been plummeting. Not only that, most users know, unfortunately, because of WRAY, that if you pay for the ransom, you still don't get your files back. Yeah, so they're just not paying. So they need to find some other way of generating money. The way they're generating money now, crypto mining, okay, which is very different for you to actually find in your organization, yeah, to finding ransomware. So it's a critical change that you need to understand. So looking at the time, I need to move on. There's a lot more to talk about. So I mentioned a thing called Atlas. I just need to, this is a credibility statement rather than that you need to understand. So I said this is powered by Atlas. Atlas is an infrastructure owned by NetScout. There are over 420 active service providers that are contributing data to our organization and have been for 10 years now. And they are sharing metadata that describes the traffic going through their network, what it looks like, what it's doing, what ports it's using, packets per second, bits per second. But critically, they're also sharing all of the anomalies in their network that they are seeing. And this data set allows us to drive our research and understand exactly what's happening in terms of the DDoS attacks, but also advanced threats in the internet. Now, no one knows how big the internet really is. It's very hard. It's growing all the time. We are a very conservative organization. So we would estimate that 140 terabits per second of traffic is what we see. That's probably somewhere between 1/3 and 1/2 of all internet traffic on the planet. Pretty big data set, guys, okay? That's the credibility statement behind this. This stuff is used by news organizations around the world. They've used it for many years. You'll always see, Source Arbor Networks at the bottom. Now it will say Source NetScout, Wall Street Journal, Wired. It's even been debated in Parliament. So this is solid information. We're the only guys that have this information. That's what we mean when we say powered by Atlas. We also have a malware research team. So all of this comes from, I don't know if this is actually going to turn up on there. So we've got spam, we've got sinkhole scanners, we've got over 20 malware sharing partners. We have relationships with nearly 70% of the world's national certs. So we're a really well-known organization out there, and one that's very proud of the research that we do. So, I don't know, if you read the report, you will get a lot more detail about all of these different campaigns, frameworks, what kind of tools, techniques, and procedures that they are using against your network. Same with the crimeware, so lots more information in there. It highlights, as I say, Emotet and TrickBot. Panda Banker is worth mentioning. Panda Banker actually has now changed and is now targeting non-Western character sets. Okay, so that might be quite important to you guys. So the first one they've gone for is actually Japanese, so they're not afraid of changing character set. So these guys are really well known for doing web injects. Okay, so really good. So the conclusion is, things are changed. This information will help you understand that. People are using real internet paradigm threats, even on the inside of the enterprise, like DDoS. They're using eternal romance for lateral movement inside your organizations. So these are really new frontiers for these attacks. Now, as I said, this is just one report, and it's our gift to the community. I was trying to think, if I was you, and this is a desk, this happens to be my floor, and that's my dog, I would be reading things like Worldwide Infrastructure Security Report. The Kaspersky Report I found really good for understanding, and this is what my colleagues recommend as well, for understanding what's happening in terms of preparedness that enterprises have for these attacks. The Symantec ISTR, really comprehensive, and actually gives you by vertical what things you should prioritize. You should always have something from a nation state, from your cert. I'm from the UK, so I've put up there the NCA, the cyber threat to UK business. So have something that's relevant there. The Verizon data breach report, again, a very well-respected report, lots and lots of detail, and as I mentioned, it dovetails a lot into what we say here. So that, as I say, well, I'm very humble, okay? I'm humbly adding this to your desk, yeah, such that as a community, we are stronger together. Thank you very much.